Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pod TV's #1 advocate show, Do It Yourself Advocate Show, Timeshare Solution or Surrender. We are Money Masters TV, filming live in Kissimmee, Florida, at the ARDA conference and award ceremony. This is all about timeshares, and that's why we've got Irene here. This is all about helping the veteran victims of timeshares who have been scammed with a new kind of scam that they're doing, but it's totally misrepresentation of the oral representation during the sale. And so, everyone, I'd like to introduce to you Irene Parker, who is the host of that show. Irene, welcome.
Hi, it's nice to be here. And I think it's nice to be here. It's been a little bit nightmare making because since 2016, I was offered my money back from a timeshare company. I can say Diamond Resorts because I refused to sign the non-disclosure agreement. And I started writing, and I actually heard from Jim Cramer of MSNBC Mad Money, and was invited to be a contributor. So that sort of got people starting to reach out. And since 2016, myself and our other volunteers have heard from over 3,000 timeshare members. And one of the problems is that everyone that buys a timeshare agrees that they did not rely on anything a sales agent said, which is perfectly acceptable in many contracts. But in timeshare, one attorney called it the license to lie clause. And so we are at ARDA, stands for the American Resort Development Association. It is a timeshare industry lobby. They raise $5 million a year by automatically billing maintenance fees, small amounts of money, opt out. So in most cases, you have to call to have that $7 removed. In 2010, they were fined for not calling the donations voluntary. Marriott is opt-in, but most are opt-out. So we have a 3-day conference here, March 24th to 26th. And I would suggest that we be here because one of the biggest concerns we have is active duty service members that are finding their security clearances in jeopardy because of a timeshare loan default. And I have a report of 20 active duty service members. We talked about them yesterday. We want to focus a little bit more today on veterans. Many veterans maintain their security clearance post-service because they worked in military-related careers. So we have a Navy commander that we supported her in resolving her dispute from 2017, and it was just resolved a month ago. And she called me and said she was shaking. She was paying $600 a month, unable to use the timeshare. We had Dustin is an Army warrant officer, and he recorded a Wyndham sales agent that claimed he was eligible for a 4% interest rate because of the GI Bill. So in spite of that, we have the finalists for the Awards of Excellence are Wyndham, Hilton, Westgate, and Holiday Inn. All 4 of those timeshare companies have been sued, accused of violating the Military Lending Act. And Westgate lost at the lower court in Florida. Judge Dalton ended the day by saying, when I check out of a timeshare, I can't leave my underwear and toothpaste, meaning that a timeshare stay is not a residential stay because the Military Lending Act exempts home mortgages. So I have with me today a Wyndham owner. He's one of 3. This is Tom, who lives in Daytona area. And Tom is a veteran in his own right. He served 23 years with the Baltimore Police Department. So we are live here at a conference, so we have some background noise. That's fine. We can work around that. But Tom is one of 3 Wyndham owners that were happy with Wyndham for over 20 years. And one of them is a Navy veteran. Another one is a 100% disabled Army veteran. And Tom is a veteran of 23 years, Baltimore Police Department. Yesterday he was driving up and down with his pickup truck with a sign that said Wyndham Sales Live. And, you know, that takes a lot to have somebody go that far. And what happened, I'm going to let Tom explain. But I want to disclose that this is not just Wyndham with this particular scam. One example of an active duty service member was Andrew. He's been on our Pod TV show, Timeshare Solution or Surrender, that airs every Monday from 1 to 2 Eastern Time. Andrew and his wife are a young couple with a 6-year-old. He served 10 years with the Idaho National Guard, and to be close to his wife and child, he was attempting to transfer to the Utah Air Force National Guard. And he had been sold by Westgate a 4-bedroom as a rental investment, and he went into great detail of how they told him he could make money with renting. Blue Green has suspended hundreds of accounts accusing people of commercial activity. And one of them in particular is so disturbing, is Ashley. Ashley's a single mom with a 5-year-old. He's had a surgery every year of his life for 5 years. He has 12 doctors. She only accepted grandmother's points because they said they had a free exit program if she ever needed to be released. And because of the little guy, they have to have friends and family use their points. And Grandma had did this for years. So she had a relative cancel, and she posted that on Blue Green Marketplace, and she received a response saying, I want to check a $5 Venmo. And she received the $5, and then she received a message that said, I knew this was a scam. And then 2 weeks later, she received a notice claiming that she was being accused of commercial activity. And so she got disgusted and said, I'm just going to give these points back. Her grandmother probably paid $150,000 over 20 years accumulating this. And they said, oh, that's been changed. Now it will cost you $8,165 to get it back. And, you know, we're not, oh, and if you wait until August, it's another $5,500. So she ended up defaulting on it. So with that, Tom, I'd like to, you must have had some pleasant memories over the past 20 years. So let us know where things went wrong.
We had purchased back in 1998 when it was Fairfield, before Wyndham had bought them out. And we told the sales agent what we wanted, and that's what they provided for us.
What did you say you wanted?
We wanted a deed. We wanted something that had been repossessed, which there were a bunch of them on the market at the time. And they provided exactly what we wanted. Used it for many years. Went lots of great places. Wyndham bought Fairfield out. I don't know exactly what year it was, but the process changed. We continued to use, and we were happy with what we had. In, I believe it was 2014, 2015, we were approached by a salesperson that said, well, the deeds are no longer going to cut it. Wyndham's kind of recalling all them. They want all that back. You're not going to be available. You're not going to have the same availability that you've had. You've got to go to Club Wyndham Access. So we had been happy, and no reason to believe that it would not be, continued. We went to Club Wyndham Access, and that was without a doubt the worst program I had ever been involved in. So we complained.
Why was that?
What's that?
Why was that?
Well, there was no inventory in any of the resorts that was assigned to Club Wyndham Access. So we went nowhere that year because there was no inventory. So the following year, we complained. We were at Ocean Walk, and we talked to the salesperson, which we could hear several other people in the room were complaining about exactly the same thing. And they came to us, the sales manager came to us and said, well, we can correct this. We can take you back to where you were before. However, you're going to have to buy more points, and the cost would be about $17,000.
$17,000?
$17,000, yes. In which case, I thought discretion the better part of valor. I got up and walked out rather than say what was on my mind. But we continued to use and continued to have what we wanted. And then in 2020, we met with our annual sales meeting, and they told us, they said, things are getting tighter, There's no longer an inventory at Ocean Walk, and you're going to start having trouble. You need to upgrade your points into the next
tier.
Next tier, yes. And so we talked about it for a long time. We sat there for many hours. My wife's contention was that we can't afford anymore. This is what we can afford.
I heard that yesterday.
Yes, we can't afford anymore. This is, don't worry about it. Here is where you can rent your points out and defray half of your costs, at least half, if not more. And they said, what you do is we're going to put your down payments on a credit card right now, but you refinance these at a low interest loan as soon as we're done this transaction. So that's exactly what they did. They maxed out 2 credit cards.
But let's of note is that banks don't finance timeshares.
That insult came later. But they said they maxed out 2 credit cards, and with the promise that we could refinance these at a lower interest.
So you charged the entire purchase, the 2 credit cards?
We charged the down payment, which was in excess of $20,000. And
what was the purchase price?
I don't know off the top of my head. It was a lot. But we learned 2 things there, that Wyndham's extra vacation program does not provide you a good experience. You can't cover your extra costs at extra vacations. They you rent a week, you give it to them, and they may rent 2 or 3 days out of that week at whatever price people are willing to pay them, and then they keep 40% of it. So that is, pardon my expression on the podcast, but it's a crappy deal. So,
and can your renter cancel?
Yes, they can.
Yes.
And the points are still gone.
Yeah.
So the other thing was that we found out that no reputable lender will lend on timeshare points.
Well, and before we go there, I'd like to mention that we had Megan on our show. Megan was pregnant with her 3rd child, Danica. Mm-hmm. She was on our show at 4 months. And her Wyndham agent told her, don't worry about your husband, a Marine, being deployed to a combat zone. You can rent it out and it'll pay for itself. Mm-hmm. And on October, all of our shows are available by the drop-down menu, by date, and by episode. So episode 36, October 28th, is Megan explaining in good detail what you're saying and her attempt when she attempted to rent and why it didn't work. And instead of the plan to stay home with a newborn and a 3 and a 5-year-old, she was forced to work full-time while Dad was deployed and under fire 3 times during his deployment. So go ahead. Next step.
Well, it was the first time I ever had a lender chuckle at me when we asked him to finance timeshare points. And he told me, he said, no one. He said, you won't find anyone that will do it. He said, you can take a home equity loan and finance them, but that's not a good deal either. So we went on through that year. The following year, we sat down with this same agent, and there was a fellow that identified himself from corporate management. And he said, no, he said, you're so close to founder's level and presidential reserve. He said, if you step into this level, he said, it will open so many doors for you that, he said, you'll be able to rent. And I told him about our experience with extra vacations. He said, we understand. He said, there's so many restrictions. He said, I will direct you to a person that I know that does this for a living, rents the points. He said, they're very effective. So we went through that. That was also very expensive. Down payment also on 2 more credit cards. It always amazed me that as a person of just average means, I couldn't just go and open the volume of credit cards that these people do just at the drop of a hat. They come back with...
You can be unemployed.
Yes, and it seems like you could be unemployed, and they would come back with 2 credit card receipts.
Yes, Kim was actually unemployed when
so we now had 3 maxed out credit cards, and one that was used strictly for their maintenance fee payments and their loan payment, because Wyndham held a good portion of the loan themselves. That's 14.9%, which is ludicrous.
Low.
So,
it's low. It can get financed as high as 19.99%, and then the credit cards kick in at about 24%.
Believe me, it took me back. It took me back to the 80s when we bought our first house at 11.5%, and that was ludicrous then. So we did that. He directed me to the person. I made contact with that person, and I have to say that that person was the only one in this entire chain that has been honest with me and did exactly what he said he would do. And they rented the points. We defrayed probably 30 to 35% of our costs. It made this exorbitant price that we were paying doable. And we looked forward to maybe increasing the number of points that we actually rented out to hold this. In January of that following year, the Wyndham sent me an unsigned letter, cease and desist, in your commercial enterprise. It took me a couple of hours of phone calls to get to someone who would actually take ownership of that letter. We discussed it, and I told him what we were told and who had told us that this was for the express purpose of defraying our costs. And she reminded me of the clause in the contract that says that you cannot use this for commercial purposes. It was never meant for commercial purposes.
And we've also had people say the agent responded for that. And actually, when I was on my way to Orlando and put my key in the ignition, TARDA contact number 550, family number 216 since January 1. She was told that you won't get in trouble unless you rent more than half your points, which isn't true.
No,
right?
That's not true either. So what they told me from, and I believe it was the Wyndham Cares Department. That's who I finally got in touch with.
The misnamed.
They told me that yes, they have people that rent for commercial purposes, and what Wyndham does is cancels anything that they figure is commercial. They cancel it the day before the reservation goes into effect.
So airfares are bought.
So you have people that are actually traveling, and that just blew me away as the worst hospitality that I have ever seen. She also reminded me that there's a clause in the contract that says that Wyndham is not responsible for anything that the sales agents tell you. And
well,
if you
actually,
look back,
I trained Diamond Resorts to change that because I had a couple headlines. I've written over 500 articles, and I'd have a headline, Diamond Vice President says they are not responsible for what their sales agents say. So then they switched over to, we're only responsible for what's in the written contract. So.
Yeah. Well, if you look at it, that's contract law 101. If you bury a clause deep enough, you can get away with anything legally. So that is just what they've reverted back to. But we ended up with these exorbitant bills and no prayer of ever getting getting it paid for, and got to a point where we could not use it. So the first person that I made contact with in the Wyndham Cares department explained the situation. We had a family member that had cancer. We were helping them. They were not people of means, so we were assisting them. We had some of our own issues as homeowners and automobile owners and all always do. And she laughed at me.
The Wyndham
agent laughed at me.
At Wyndham Cares.
At Wyndham Cares. So they cared a lot. So I had not talked to them again for a year or so. I started writing letters. I've written to Michael Brown's office, email-wise. I've written to their legal department. I have written to their brand manager. Most of them went unanswered. Some of them were certified letters, return receipt requested, so I know they were received.
And obviously you hadn't reached out. Our organization, I don't know if I even mentioned the name, but when I heard what the American Resort Development Association is, I couldn't help myself. I came up with Timeshare Resort Developer Accountability, TARDA,
yes.
not ARDA. But this sounds like this was before you contacted us, because we save your money sending certified. They just put it in file 13. So how did you find us and when?
I found you on the internet, looking at timeshare exit companies, reading everybody's assessment that timeshare exit companies were in general bigger scams than timeshare itself. Then I came across TARDA, and I have been very grateful for the advice that I have received here. It has been very effective.
And when I read your report, I didn't understand anything, but and so I start asking questions, right? I probably asked you 50 questions to unravel this complexity, because, if you bought one or two times, it's kind of simple, but if you've been with the company for 20 years and you've bought 5 or 6 times, I want to know the whole picture. And I start, I always start everybody, when was the first time you became involved with Wyndham or Blue Green or Westgate? And then, I upgrade. And then by the time I go through the whole chronology, it's like, you get it. Okay, now we can write the first paragraph. What do you want? And we're not lawyers, so we don't ask you to send us your contracts. This is self-advocacy, because we had 6 people report losing $146,000 to exit scams just in 2 months, just in the last 2 months ago. And, it's really sad. So we just, when we knew we were going to come here, this was suggested that we come here because with Westgate sued, accused of violating the Military Lending Act, losing in the Middle District of Florida, losing at the appellate court, and we have so many active duty service members with their security clearances. We've had 20 active duty service members in the last year with their security clearances in jeopardy.
Unthinkable.
And so, who is the guest speaker today at ARDA? Paul Whalen, who is a Marine, dishonorably discharged, bad conduct discharged, in 2008. He did reach the rank of staff sergeant. He was discharged for dereliction of duty. This is according to Wikipedia, so it's public knowledge. Falsifying official statements, wrongfully using people's social security number, and bouncing checks. Perfect for selling timeshare. we have a list of 23 sales agents with criminal histories, including someone that was selling timeshare points in Virginia that spent 18 months in a federal facility here as an agent for the Syrian government to silence, harm, and intimidate people protesting the Syrian regime. Then we have Ryan McMillan in Missouri. I can say his name because the Missouri Supreme Court unanimously disbarred him for gambling, cocaine, and mental health problems, mismanaging trust accounts. He got hired by Diamond to sell points. We have him on a recording fabricating a maintenance fee relief program. You can't make this up. So, okay, all right, so now we've got your report and we sent it off, and Kim was holding up the flyer of your truck. So
I gotta say, I have to say that part I find distasteful. I find it demeaning and distasteful, but they forced me into it because they ignored me for so many years. 2 years I've been trying to get out from underneath of this. So other people have had success in it, so why shouldn't I? So I did that. And we'll continue to do it because where I am right now is not a positive solution for either them or me. It still leaves me in default on a loan, which is something that I have never done in my life. My wife is the same way. We both find default appalling. But why should we be in debt to the point that we are almost bankrupt for something that we can no longer use that was sold to us under false pretenses?
Yeah, and you know, you're a police officer, so you know how to keep a bold front. Marcy yesterday, I could feel her pain. And families that contact us, more than a few are devastated, just devastated. And we have Dylan, who's in the Air Force, and his maintenance fees were double what he thought. This was blue-green. And so it's he couldn't afford the $2,000. So he's paying $600 a month for nothing. And even though we have the 11th Circuit, we have Fannie Mae, we have the NCUA saying it's not a mortgage, and so you are a covered borrower, which meant that all the contracts should be voided from inception. But you still have Marriott saying that no, our loans are exempt. And worse, Holiday Inn, one of the finalists for the Awards of Excellence, they referred an active duty service member, Air Force, to Timeshares Only. Timeshares Only is owned by the former chairman of ARDA, Bert Blitcher. And if they had called a licensed broker, I have a Florida real estate license. A friend of mine asked me to work in Marriott rentals and resales. I lasted about 2 months, and I have too many folks like you calling me. I'm incapable of not answering the phone when they call. But it just, it just never stops. So now, and we have had some success with Wyndham. Hilton has been resolving quite a few complaints. Kim helps she actually reached out to Wyndham Media, which we can still do that, Kim, for Tom. And we had Sandra. Sandra has been a WorldMark owner for years and years and years. And she checked in and they said, oh, it's Travel Leisure now, Travel and Leisure. Wyndham bought Travel and Leisure, but they're changing the name to Travel and Leisure, probably because of the reputation maybe. But they said, we need to enter this information for you. So they entered it, and then she walked out of there not knowing that she had bought $11,000 worth of points. Might as well been $111,000 because she was practically living in her car. She was embarrassed to have her children hear her, and she couldn't get a loan to buy a house. She was going from kid to kid. So finally, we had her on Pod TV, and she is resolved. You know, so it can happen. We've had people, it would take 3 years, and, you know, you leave no stone unturned. So, you know, it's...
I got my settlement letter,
Mm-hmm.
and they said they would have everything settled in 60 days. Give me my check, refund me all of my money in 60 days if I signed it right away. And so I did right away. And you after questions are asked, and they fixed it. I signed it, sent it back to them in less than 5 days. Right, I had everything ready, I had notarized and everything. I sent it. A month goes by, nothing. 2 months goes by, nothing. Then all of a sudden they started doing weird things with my credit card without even notifying me that they're gonna maybe put money on it. What they did was take my money. So then they put money on it. But it was so sloppy. I couldn't tell whether they were putting more out. But they broke the law this time because they had an authorization to even exchange with my credit card because that was a different credit card than the one they gave me.
I kind of think that is why Wyndham works with one particular credit card company and only one credit card company, because they're given that kind of access.
That was Barclays?
That was Barclays, yes.
They were also Diamond Resorts, but now that Hilton bought Diamond, they're switched to Amex.
Well, when I defaulted, my payments per month were $2,200 and change.
Now, do you remember your loan balance?
No, it was in the 50s.
I think it's conservative to say over 20 years you paid over $150,000.
Oh, easily. Yes, easily that we had paid off. Yes, that we have paid off.
Before being upsold and getting those loans.
But they, the default still leaves us with at least, well, we started with 3 maxed out credit cards. 2 of them are still right near max level. So as I said, this is what we have right now is not a solution to our problem, and it's not a relief from what was done to us. But as I said, we still have a couple of maxed out credit cards to deal with.
And the catch-22 is that if you finance a timeshare, it's financed between 12 and 19%. So some people will say, don't finance it. But then if you get a home equity loan, they've got their money, and obtaining a refund is a whole lot harder.
And your home is in jeopardy.
What?
And your home is in jeopardy.
No.
The home equity loan?
Oh, yeah, for borrowing money. Some people, now I attended a 5-day trial, and Wyndham was awarded $16 million by the judge against the timeshare exit company. And so there was a spread in PRN News about Wyndham is awarded $16 million for suing this exit company. I didn't see any PRN when this family lost an arbitration disputing a $38,000 purchase, and the arbitration award against them was $91,000. They had to pay Wyndham's attorney's fees.
How do you say punishment?
Yes. And then there was another one where it was a $47,000. Arbitration has been proven to be a kangaroo court. That there was one family in California disputing a $5,000 loan, and the judgment against them was $79,000. They were ordered to pay over $55,000 in the resort's attorney's fees. And we have a Navy couple. Dad was deployed, $12,000 loan. They were ordered to pay $66,000. A judge is paid for by taxpayer dollars. Wyndham and all the rest, they pay their arbitrators $400 to $800 an hour, and they want the arbitration in their county. Well, who are they going to like? They're not going to get called to be arbitrators if they're not ruling on the side. And the contract, all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted. So the only court open is the court of public opinion, which is why we're here today. And we're hoping we can get, people. We have a 3.5-minute Vimeo about the oral representation clause, and we want people to like that. And maybe we can do another one of these and put that up because, anybody, yeah, and then anybody that reaches out to us, we have 10 people on our board, it's too late. But if you know anybody that has never bought a timeshare, you need to know. And we're trying to lobby for 3 things. The oral representation clause should be disclosed at or prior to the presentation, not buried in 50 pages of electronic fine print. You get an appointment card or you get an email, all you have to put, do not rely on oral representations to make your purchase. Then the other thing is the contract rescission period. Availability is not part of the contract. You would not have been protected by reading the contract or by the contract rescission period because your contract stated that you can rent. So you don't have all the obstacles that make that impossible to cover costs. You can say, the naysayers like to say, you should have read the contract. You had 10 days to cancel. That wouldn't have helped you. Now, are you getting collection calls?
Oh,
are you getting
dozens per day. Yes.
And have I told you my ICE agent story?
No.
Okay, this is very important. Okay, this is an ICE agent that was sold not enough points for a family of 6 to go to Hawaii. So he would get a call from a collection agent at work, and he would say to the collection agent, I'm really glad you called. And who says to a collection agent, I'm really glad that you called me today? And so he would try to keep the collection agent on the show on the phone as long as he possibly could. And in 2016 and 2017, over 1,000 Diamond members filed complaints with just the Arizona Attorney General. And so he said, I have 1,000 complaints here, and you're calling me, so you're part of this, and I have a master's degree in justice. I'm a Navy veteran. And then one time he called me, he said, I had a really bad day at work, so when I got home, I sent Diamond's executives 50 tweets. And after 18 months, he just became such a headache. And then we had someone who would kill me if I identified him, but he worked in animation and done a lot of work for the comic industry. And he went about this as an action hero. And, I mean, he became, oh, my gosh, I mean, he was like coming on me all that. Here, I need you to read this. I want to send this to this congressman. So he started out once every three weeks, and then maybe he upped it to 2 weeks, where he would email some, Gretchen Morgensen Pulitzer winner that published in the New York Times about timeshare, and then he would blind carbon all the executives. And he did that, and finally he got a call from an executive. He said that, Maria Calvert called me, and I'm like, oh my God, I think she's the 6th highest executive. And then so I waited a few days. I thought, wow, maybe he's gonna. I called him and I said, how did it go? It didn't go very well. Really? What happened? She just wanted to give us our money back. I'm like, excuse me, we must have a bad connection. What about the pain and suffering? And I'm like, attorneys don't get pain and suffering on timeshares, So, but you're now, it's almost like the 5 stages of grief: shock, denial, procrastination. I know that's not one of the stages of grief, but there's a lot of that going on. And, we try to keep our gallows humor. We really try to keep our gallows humor. And I don't know, Kim, I could talk for the next 8 hours. Are we okay?
We've got about a few minutes left, but let's kind of talk about some of the things that we want to hear here, Tom. What are some of the things that you would like to accomplish here? I know that you received a phone call, so that's good. That's a good move. That's a good move forward.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I forgot. Right. Yes. Yeah. It only took a year and a half driving up and down Daytona and Orlando with a pickup truck with a sign to get a call from Wyndham Cares.
And is
Thank
this
you, Kim.
their solutions that they offered me, the first two solutions were unpalatable because it would put me deeper in debt than I already was. The final opportunity that was there was just simply to walk away from it. And then it would revert back to the company after a few years, which first of all, they I'm sure will just work on destroying my credit, which other than this particular incident has been pristine throughout my entire life. My wife's also. And it doesn't take care of the credit cards that they did because they've already been paid for that. I'm stuck with them. So, this type of activity will continue for the foreseeable future. And it doesn't change the system. How do we have one timeshare company in the industry that does business so differently than all of the other ones, and yet all we do is have to go a half a mile, and we can see that they're not exactly hurting for money, but they will buy back their timeshare. Their timeshare actually has monetary value.
Well, that's only Disney.
I wasn't going to mention the name, but
Disney's the biggest.
Why do we have one that can do business with their customers in mind, and the rest of them are looking to take blood from their customers? It's deceitful, and that is how they get along every day. That's why it's kind of appalled that we sit here when so many of them are getting awarded, and this is the basis of where.
And yesterday, Valerie, who was on our show, she called me and said that she owes $45,000, and they said, "Oh, you need to get to the bronze level." She said, "Well, I can't really afford it." No, you're eligible for a 6% interest rate, but you have to have it before you go in service. She's been 23 years with the Air Force, so now they're like saying, "Well, if you give us $14,000," she says, "Well, I would if I could. I live from paycheck to paycheck, and I'm going to be retiring." And I was really looking. She loved Wyndham. And she was planning to use her points in retirement now.
If they had not bankrupted me, I would be using it as well. So.
And I want to add, not only but on top of it, they allow the opportunity after some say, you know what, I can't do this anymore, for whatever reason. They've already paid for it 4 or 5 times. They let them back out of the contract, right? Because you've already started years. Now, word of mouth, still a good word of mouth.
Yes.
Which would sell more. I would buy in.
I have family members that are Disney Vacation Club members, and they are appalled at what the things that we go through.
Yeah, and I've got my veteran shirt on that we got at a veterans event. How much do I have time to talk about a couple of these veterans?
She wanted to share one of the things I wanted to add is that with my situation, it took him a year to get me a final check. After playing around with my credit card without any authorization, and I looked at the laws, and the law says no one is allowed to either put money on your account or take money out without authorization. And they had absolutely none on that credit card. Then they wanted me to give them the money back. And I'm like, no, we're not playing this game. If you write me a full check, then I'll give it back. But we're not going down the check in 3 or 4 months like this. I ended up contacting the state attorney general again.
Yes.
And again.
And that was a pro-consumer attorney general, fortunately. Yeah, pretty much the Florida and Nevada, they protect the developers.
But the thing is, he did absolutely nothing. He made like, oh yeah, here's your report, we'll do all of this, and we're taking him to court for robocalls. And I'm like, robocalls ain't nothing. Take him to court for fraud.
Hmm?
Oh no, we don't do that. We do robocalls.
It's,
That's against the law to do robocalls. But okay, fine, go for robocalls. That's how that contact you to begin with.
hmm
But what bothered me was a full year later, I get the check, right? The final piece after harassing. I shouldn't say that. After contacting your attorney correctly. Not very nice. And she said, I'll call you back in a day or two. And I said, okay, she did. And about 2 months later, I got a check. The final check. When I deposited it, it had insufficient funds for me. Rather than out them, I should have. I contacted hey.
First, you contacted me hysterical.
I contacted her.
You can imagine the toll this takes on me. I'm 50 hours a week volunteer now, 80% talking to people that are desperate and angry.
I was concerned because, they get millions a day. Damn it. What are they doing with the money?
There's some Bentleys parked out front.
And, the big company out here has been pretty good.
The hotel here is $450 a night. We're staying with the peasants down the road.
What I'm saying is that they definitely put the money into the conference, and we all need a couple dollars plus as a refund, and them a year, the remainder, and then it's a contract. But I was kind, and I said, put the money in.
But you followed our process. You to the T.
I had contacted the state attorney general before I did it because I was tired of waiting, and so I did the Illinois, and I didn't realize it would take him a month and a half. So I started looking for attorneys, and I landed on Lynn. So I called like three big ones, and they go, we can't help you, but call this guy. We can't help you, call Lynn. Lynn goes, I need to introduce you to Ida. I'm not going to take her place.
And I'm like, you think you're this big, tough Marine veteran, and you didn't have the heart to charge her anything.
Right. He didn't have the heart to charge me because when he found out that I had been employed for 3 years and they got me a credit approved for $50,000, and then I told him I was smashing rocks when I was there.
That's
he kind of hit the roof. He goes, oh, bro, we'll win this case, but I can't. I need to talk to Ida. But this is what it says. Promise me you will not call me again. You will wait till Monday. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Friday night. So I'm sitting here all weekend going, I called her. What can I call her? Come to find out, 4 Irish calls 7 days a week.
Especially on the weekends, it's busier.
But it was a blessing, and he was right. Because he told me, he said, well, if you're in Turkey, maybe you can work something out. This could help.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't feel so alone anymore. I mean, we have 10 people on our board, but Kim has just gone beyond the call of duty. But I want to pay tribute since I'm wearing my veterans. It's hard. I'm just going to pick 2 of the 5, and you can let me know. Oh, great. Maybe I can talk about all 5 of these guys. First is Leo Gomez. I don't know if there's a very old movie called The Milagro Beanfield War. And Leo sounded, in that movie, he had a big pet pig that would follow him around, and he'd leave a beer and a taco at the foot of the Virgin Mary every night. And Leo called me and said, I have a problem. I have a timeshare loan. They wanted me to switch from Premier Vacation to U.S. Collection. Well, a lot of people do that. That's probably not, it's okay. Well, all right. I was just worried because, I didn't want to leave my wife this loan. I only have 30 days left to live. I'm like, what? And it turns out Leo was a Vietnam veteran, 2 Purple Hearts, he said. He forgot to mention the Bronze Star. I read about that in his obituary. And I said, who was your sales agent? And did they know you had pancreatic cancer? Yeah, I told them that's why I was so tired. When he told me the name of the sales agent, that's why I try not to take calls at night. We've had a dozen complaints against this sales agent, one of the worst sales agents on the planet. So because he was dying, I talked to Leo 6 to 8 times the last 30 days of his month about his timeshare. And I filed a complaint with the Arizona Attorney General. Diamond's attorney responded with a very detailed letter, everything wrong with Irene Parker. And then the last line was, under the circumstances, we'll cancel the loan. And like, whatever, you know. And then I'm like, a couple weeks later, Lydia, his wife, called hysterical. He only had hours to live, and Barclay was calling, demanding the down payment. They didn't cancel his down payment. And then we have Roy Simmons. His daughter did a YouTube. It's had 10,000 views. And the definition of white-collar crime by the FBI is deceit, concealment, violation of trust, and bait and switch. You experience all that, but it's not a crime. It's civil because you signed an agreement. I was manager of Duval County Senior versus Crime, which is a special project of the Florida Attorney General's office. And, you know, we would go back, my office was in the substation in Jacksonville, Florida, at the sheriff's substation. But Roy Simmons, his daughter started with that definition. He had to file for bankruptcy. And to listen to that YouTube, where I call it the ping pong upsell, that if you're in Hawaii, they'll say, oh, you shouldn't have bought U.S. collection points. Hawaii points are really valuable. They have no value whatsoever. We actually had someone in Virginia showing them decaying air conditioners as to why they shouldn't have bought Hawaii. And so he went back and forth, and they said that, you know, I shouldn't have bought in Florida. No, I shouldn't have bought it. He was in Florida. I shouldn't have bought in Hawaii because they have hurricanes in Hawaii. And then, you know, back and forth. And then they said if you buy these, then the shares could split. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But he was charging $2,700 a month in loan payments. A Navy veteran, a retired letter carrier, at $2,700 a month, charging to multiple credit cards until his daughter found out. One last thing, I'm glad I didn't forget this. One of the worst complaints was Capitol Resorts, where the husband had Alzheimer's, and they said, this is our last stay, Myrtle Beach. And they said, well, it's going to cost you $9,800 to get out. Well, that's a lot, but okay. Didn't know until he got home and got things in the mail that he bought $61,000 worth of points. They took his deeds and converted them to points. He called the sales center, and they referred him to an exit scam in Colorado that bilked him. They tried to get $17,000. They didn't get $12,000. It was reported. His son called me. His son had flown from Florida to Colorado, the daughter from Ohio to Colorado. We were able to work that out. The chairman of ARDA Rock, the Resort Owners Coalition, is an executive consultant for that company, Capitol Resorts. And it's like, talk about the wolf guarding the chicken coop. And all these guys are giving themselves these awards of excellence. And all we want, talk to us. Yeah, talk to us. Talk to us, not at us.
Excellence could be anything, right? Excellence in swimming, excellence in the healing. I mean, you know, excellence could be anything. It doesn't have to be good.
Yes.
Remember what you said about good trouble?
Yeah.
There's good trouble and then there's trouble.
What was the name of that congressman in North Carolina? He's an African-American, a beautiful person.
But that is why you'll never get these timeshare developers to actually appear and share their side of the story, in their defense. They won't do it because
we're just a couple dummies that don't know how to use our points. Never mind if it's a $10 billion industry and they say 90% are happy, which is questionable. That's still $1 billion of people that are not happy.
Oh, sure.
Not just happy, but devastated.
Well, the thing that you know back when I was on the hotel, the best hotel.
Can you say hi?
But if you don't represent yourself, a lot of times you represent yourself, it takes the client, right? But in this case, the whole industry really, like, I don't know what we talked about that don't see. Maybe have a person.
Well, you need to go to the Wall Street Journal Economic Analysis of Timeshare and read the 155 comments, and you can spot the shills. It's like, oh my gosh.
I would like to see if we could get a wall somewhere where people would just sign and state whether they, what company, and just get a wall signature somewhere where,
Yes.
like how scrolling now, like where we put, hi, I'm so, everybody, whatever, and it never goes away, right?
We have a wall of shame. And so right now the highest is 24 complaints. Now, exit companies get 3,000 callers a week, and I get 20 a week. I'm shaken, and so 24 complaints. He made $2.4 million a year, and he sued Diamond Resorts, accusing them of wrongful termination and accusing his vice president of sexual assault. And he admitted in his lawsuit that he created reasons why people needed to buy more points. And we still went to the Nevada Real Estate Division because you have to file against a particular agent. And they said, oh, he's just a disgruntled employee. This is what I mean about some attorney generals protect the developers. I don't know, in Florida, maybe it's at $90 billion a year in tourist money coming in. Might have a little bit of something to do with it.
That's exactly right, especially here in Florida.
Yeah. So,
we are at the top of the hour here.
Was that a whole hour? Oh my gosh.
We had a very good conversation. And everyone joining us. We were on Pod TV while we're filming live in Orlando. Don't forget to watch it every Monday at 1 p.m. Standard Time. Surrender. We're not every story as horror story as some of the ones that we tell you. We actually have stories on Timeshare too. We just try to give the time, but it's kind of hard when you have to because we understand. But right now we have military, the veterans stand, and we want to stop it because they do not deserve what is happening. We're going to bring you more of their story next Monday. We're filming live from home. So everybody, please have blessed, safe day. We'll see you tomorrow. We are going to end something. Have a great day.